Rated M for mature.
You should never have come. You're only going to make things worse for everyone.
No. She chose to come. I didn't make the rules between you two.
You're fighting to change things.
For those who come after. Right?
So I was used to losing people.
Yeah, me too.
Only take everything.
Is this true?
What else with him?
We need to go now.
Who are you?
I know it seems absurd to offer oblivion as recompense, but
She'll never paint again.
Wow, good evening and welcome to Game Club. It is like a book club, but with games. And tonight we're going to be talking about Expedition 33, which is an absolutely stonking game. So I'm really looking forward to this. And tonight on the panel, we have got Mr. Blunners.
Hello, everyone. Haven't done my usual yet because I was too busy sorting that stream out, but I will do my membership post now and gift a membership to someone. So, yeah, really excited to talk about this game.
Awesome. And we have Mr. Ollie. How are you doing, Ollie?
Bonjour. Yes, all good. Thank you. Very much looking forward to this. It's been a little while since I've played it, so I'm dead excited to be talking about it again.
Excellent. And as this is Game Club, we open up the panel to anyone in the group who wants to join. And today we have special guest, Darkness Dreams. How are you doing?
I'm okay. Thank you very much, Tim. I'm looking forward to this.
Good, good. Thank you for joining us. So, let's do a few little shout outs. Hello, Mr. Taylor. Thank you for joining us. Hello, Mr. Newland. Oh, and Blunners has gifted his membership now. And
Yeah, it says here actual MVP. So
actual MVP.
You have leveled up.
There you go. So enjoy some little bonus membership content that we put out there for the time being. Right. Let us get started with just the intro. So let's just do a little quick whip round of who's or what. So I'll start with you, Blunners, because I know that you actually haven't finished the game. So what are your thoughts on what you've done so far, though?
Yeah, so I started the game when it first came out and didn't really pay much attention to it. Like, as in, I thought it was okay, but didn't think I ended up dropping it and then coming back to it later. After obviously saw the hype, got Game of the Year, I thought, right, okay, I really need to actually spend some time with this game because it was free on Game Pass, so it's accessible for loads of people. Game Pass hadn't actually stitched everyone up by putting it up like 50%, so it was actually quite worth playing. And then, so I first impressions, I love the way it looked. I remember seeing it. We spoke about this on ModCons when we done like a recap of one of the Xbox like live event things they done. And I remember all three of us three then going, wow, this does look very good. And like just the way it look, like we'll go into depths and details later, but as the introduction to the game, it is very powerful once you actually do really take your time and pay attention, like I should have the first time. But yeah, it is very good.
Cool. And I'm going to keep going around the room. So what about you, Ollie? What are your first impressions of the game?
So I can't remember what expo or what show I remember seeing the trailer for it and thinking, yay, turn-based RPG, sign me up. As much as I do enjoy the way Final Fantasy and everything has kind of gone in the last sort of 5-10 years, I do miss a little bit of turn-based RPG. So that is the one thing that really grabbed me to start with. And then just enjoying the world, the way it looked. Obviously, we're going to get onto that as another topic, so I'm going to try not to talk about that too much now. I was just really hooked from the beginning. It's a very small studio compared to like a AAA title, but this is kind of a AAA title in a weird way. It's the indiest AAA title I've played probably since No Man's Sky, I would say.
Wow.
But yeah, bought into it the moment I saw it.
Cool. Just before we go to you, Dark Streams, I'm just going to do a quick shout out to Dave Newland. Thank you for gifting some memberships. So thank you very much, Dave.
Very kind.
Always
Nice
grateful for when people do that for us. So, Dark Streams, what were your first impressions of the game?
I was
Once we
absolutely
get to play it.
completely blindsided by it. I never saw it coming, didn't even know it existed until a friend of mine mentioned it on one of my Discord channels. And he said, "Oh, you'll love it because we both play Final Fantasy." And he said, "You'll love this. You need to get into it." And I had a look at it, and I was like, initially kind of like, "Oh, it's French." And I was like, I don't know if I want to play that because I do a lot of other online gaming, and normally they're a difficult bunch for me. But looked at it, and I went, actually, this is intriguing. So I picked it up, started it, and then I think you had started playing it as well, Triangle. And yeah, it was just pretty awesome. I was like, wow, where did this come from? It's like just completely blindsided. And it's like I thought it was a AAA title. I didn't even realize it was an independent studio. Picked it up, started playing. I was like, this is absolutely awesome. So yeah, I gotta be honest, it's probably one of the best finds I've ever. Just to blindside me out of the blue.
And I think for me, it was the same as a lot of you have already mentioned. Just caught it on one of those. I think it was like Xbox Showcase or something, but it was only a very short clip. And I just thought, ooh, something new. It's a new IP. It's not something which is, whatever it is, 2 or remake or anything like that. It's like, this is a new game. And when it gave you a little brief overview, just that premise of the number counting down and anyone that is that age dies, and they've got like a ticking clock, they got a doom counter to try and save them. And I was like, that's a really cool premise. I want to check this out. So
I watched the trailer and literally bought it within 5 minutes of watching the trailer. I was like, oh, that's it. Yeah, I'm definitely getting that.
So I'm kind of feeling, do we want to talk a little bit about the story first? Because the next topic is actually gameplay mechanics and design. But do we want to talk about what the game actually is first?
I think
go through that. I think that feels more natural.
That would make sense.
Yeah. Okay, so let me just move up to here, the story and world building. So obviously there's going to be some spoilers here if you've not played it, but we're going to just talk freely about the game. I think if I just sort of say the first, the intro for me, I think it kind of breaks, there's different acts, isn't there? And there's quite a few like big emotional moments throughout the game. And I just think that intro is probably one of the most powerful intros in a game I've played in years. I think some of the intros that really stick out to me, I compare this a lot to Final Fantasy VII because of a lot of how, like, the different themes of the game and how it plays, but also like how it just kind of has those emotional hits at different key chapters. I think that beginning of, it's like that beginning of 7 where you just jump off the train and you're in the Mako reactor. That's like a really big, cool.
I was thinking the same as the whole build-up is like when it's the equivalent of, for me, that the opening sequence of the Final Fantasy VII, the original and even the remake, is that whole bit of where it's going around Midgar, you're seeing all bits of the planet and stuff, and you hit the train, you jump off. This Expedition 33 has completely topped that for me. because that opening act, for example, the bit until you're building up to them setting off, the learning the mechanics of the game and stuff, it doesn't give anything away, but it's everything. It becomes so important at the end of the game, and you're like, oh my god, that little bit at the beginning was so important.
Do you know what, though? When I first played that intro, I didn't quite pick up what was going on. I've gone back and played it on my second playthrough, and I was like, oh, it's quite clear what's going on, actually. They kind of spell out for you. But for some reason, I thought that Gustav's girlfriend, Sophie, was going on an expedition. And they were going to say goodbye at the pier. I think it's because they said they're going to the pier, right? It's like, oh, you're going to say goodbye to Sophie. I was like, oh, she'll be at the pier. I was like, oh, she must be going on one of these expeditions, and they're having to like. And then it got to the bit where the Gamage started. I'm like, oh, she's not going on the expedition. She's 34, and then it's just like, oh god, and then it's like, So that was quite a powerful beginning, I think.
Sorry, go on.
Yeah, so when you were talking about this is what made me then go, shit, I shouldn't have done a Daubs and just skipped everything.
No,
so when I first played the game, so the
Yeah.
first time I played the game, no joke, I short on time. It took fucking ages to download and install, and I just done a Daubs, just skip, get to the bit and played it, and then I didn't have a clue what was going on. So when you were talking about, oh yeah, that's the beginning, and that was so good, I thought, oh, I need to get back into this game. But at the time, I'd already got rid of Game Pass, so I ended up buying it for pretty much £5 more than what Game Pass is on eBay for about 25 quid. And obviously replayed the whole lot from scratch, watched it, and I was like, oh, okay, now I know what they're on about. And they were saying it. I was like thinking, fucking hell, I didn't really know what was going on. But it's quite weird to play a game like Daubs. I've never played a game like that before. It was just short on time and I just wanted to get to the fighting mechanics basically. But yeah, that story, how it sets you up, is really good. But just the way it's written, like that's the main thing for me. The way it's like you said, it completely catches you off guard. Like we heard kind of glimpse about it, didn't we? We kind of had an inkling about the story, but the way they build them characters together, and then all of a sudden one's taken away from you like that, you then think, oh fuck.
It literally puts you on cliff edge, doesn't it? And then pushes you over, and you're like, oh, God.
I think as well, like, when you start, I was like, oh, I want to kind of get into this game. I didn't know anything about it. So I'm just like, new game. I'm going to spend some time talking to everyone in the little bazaar bit at the start before you go around and think, oh, these are obviously like going to be characters in the game. And you go to the beach, and they all die. And I'm like, oh, I was just like starting to get emotionally invested in these characters that I've known for about 3 minutes. And they're all just going to get killed off immediately. But you kind of get the impression like there's some camaraderie between them. They've like worked together, or, you know, there's a background with each of these characters. And then you don't even get to know them. They just get like brutally murdered. I'm like, oh, and then the game kind of starts. It's like, well, that was quite the intro. Yeah, I don't know how to like kind of get over that immediately. What about you, Ollie? What are your thoughts on some of like the first bits of the story? And on?
Yeah, I'm a sucker for world building. I love. I'm the same with cinema. I like movies that are long. I like movies that are slow. You know, I'm not like Daubs. I don't skip anything. I'm invested from the beginning. So I really took my time in that first sort of area and just walking around, taking in the graphics, because that's what really sort of took me by surprise at the start, was how it looked and how incredible the world actually felt. It felt lived in. It felt familiar, but also really obscure. I mean, the title.
There's a lot of love in that opening.
Yeah, a lot. And to sort of get to the end and just have your love just dissipate beautifully in your arms was quite, wow, that's quite savage.
For a way of people dying in the game, the gamage is actually quite beautiful, really, if you think about it, where they just fade into the petals and disappear. But the first time you see it, it's really poignant, and it is absolute love, because you think is this something connected to him because it's his love? And then you realize, no, it's everybody. And in that some sense, that translates into all of these people are loved by someone in that store, and I think that subconsciously that's what feeds into it.
And it doesn't sort of dive too much into the story, but as soon as that emotional investment has taken place, you're then thrust into, I guess, like the fantasy equivalent of a D-Day landing, where you just arrive on the beach with your expedition and just get annihilated. And it's just, it lets up a bit after that, and you get this sort of prolonged period of quiet where you actually get to, I think it is done by design, because it really does clout you quite a lot at the beginning with a lot of heavy emotions and a lot of really quite serious and quite adult themes, and then it has this like prolonged moment of just quiet where you just get to enjoy the mechanics of the gameplay, take in some of the graphics, and actually just think a little bit about what's just happened. Yeah, that intro really took me.
And I think there's something that really good, and it's kind of like a bit of a trope in games, and I think this game does it very, very well, is you see one of the big bosses early on, and he is just so far above you. You're like, how could we possibly fathom fighting this guy? He's just killed everyone like with ease. And then even like later on, when you then have the scene with Gustav, and he just gets killed like that, and you're like, oh, I can remember you texted me, Ollie. You were like, so Gustav's dead, and I was like, yeah. You're like, but dead. I'm like, yes.
I remember you like that.
He's gone. I was like, no, because again, it's like he's got voiced by Charlie Cox and stuff. You think he would be like the main character throughout, and then they just do that. And again, I think with Renoir doing that, he is such a good villain. And then when you kind of peel back the layers of Renoir as well, because I didn't kind of quite understand a lot of the conversations, I'm sure many people didn't, between Renoir and the what's the name of the other version of him where you can't see his face that like follows them around, who makes the swords. I want to say like the cartographer or something like that, isn't it?
Something like that.
Right, right, something like that. Yeah. So
it just makes the noise.
Yeah, it just makes that noise. So that's like the real him, and the other one's like a painted. And it's just one line from Maëlle where she says, "Oh, Mama didn't paint him in the best light." And it's like, okay, the real Renoir isn't that much of a savage bastard, but when she painted him, she was mad at him a bit, and she painted him a little bit worse. That's it, the curator. Thank you. And it's like, okay, he's even worse in his painted self than the real him. And yeah, I just thought that was a really cool twist of the character, because then when you face the real him, it's like, oh, actually, this isn't the guy that killed everyone on the beach, but the guy that killed everyone on the beach is like based on him, and he's got his own motivations. And yeah, it's very cleverly done, and I think it's quite a mature story as well.
I found it really traumatic for a lot of it. And I remember you when you, because I was further than you, Triangle, and I'd done the Gustav death bit, and then I remember you the next day in work, you were like, oh my God, I can't believe he's dead. What the hell are they doing? Sort of attitude. And it's just, when you get that emotional investment in the game, it's actually worth it.
Yes.
That's what keeps you going.
Absolutely.
And I'd be honest, in the current climate of games, that's the first time I felt emotionally invested in a game for years and years. And it was, yeah, like Ollie was saying, there's like the whole thing of like, you go through the intro, you hit, his Gustav's girlfriend like fades away into petals. And then you get on the boat, and then all of a sudden you're off, and it's like, yeah, it's like D-Day. And the worst bit for me is when it went quiet, because that felt like that moment after you've had like a traumatic event, and all of a sudden the world just stops, and you're suddenly just wandering around, wondering what the hell has just happened. What am I going to do next? And where the hell is everyone? And I'm like, I don't know what I'm doing. All I'm doing is following the path forward, and I'm like, shit.
What about the bit where he sits down and just like puts the gun to his head?
Yeah.
And it's like,
and you're like,
oh, what?
It's like, seriously? It's like, how I haven't seen anything like that in a game. And to me, this is where I said, I know I joked a bit at the beginning about it being French, but I think that added to the game, because they are very good at writing that kind of dark fantasy, where it's actually really very bittersweet. And the whole game played very bittersweet. Every good moment had its opposite bad moment. As you're going through it, it's like just as you're about to hit a high, something brings you crashing back down. And it's just a roller coaster all the way through to the end.
It's interesting because actually, when you say like they've got some highs in there, because they do, because they're also exploring the continent for the first time, and then especially character I really like the Lune character and Cecile, because Lune's like studied and trained for this her whole life, and she's like, I really want to meet like the Gestrals. I really want to see, and their landscapes and everything is like beautiful, but it's like, but the reason you're here is to like stop this doom counter and stop Paintress and destroy the monolith. They got, and she's very serious about the mission as well. And one thing I really like about her character is that she's not kind of like bossy or rude to people or aggressive, but she's always like, no, you need to kind of stay on this mission. And it's like when they first are looking for my elf, she's like, no, follow protocol. We need to follow protocol and go do this. And it's not because she's like heartless and doesn't care that their friend is missing. It's like, no, we have to go and do this. This is really important. And that's like, I really like that in the game, there's a very short amount of time spent going, oh, this is the motivation for the characters. This is why you need to go and do this thing. Because it's like, if you don't do it, you're gonna all die. So that's enough motivation for everyone. It's like, let's just crack on with the story then.
No motivation sometimes. It's like, it's just a fact that they've got no choice but to keep going because they can't go back. And that's literally the underlying motive. They've got to keep moving on. And as much as they want, sometimes seem like they want to give up, they just can't. And it's like you're saying, funny with Lune. One of the things I found about her, I didn't use her much as a character in the game, but when I did, you could see the joy she had from actually battling and fighting sometimes, you know, and like that's where it'd come in. You could see, and when they're exploring new areas, she'd be the one to have the expression of that, oh, this is amazing. Look at this. I'm going to write this down sort of thing. But then you had the juxtaposition, or the opposite to that was when after Gustav died, and Maëlle would sit there at the campsite every night and write in a journal. That was such an amazing touch to the game. And it just gave it that depth, and it made you draw into it. There was points where I just couldn't put it down. I just couldn't.
Oh, absolutely. Me too, yeah.
So I just found like, well, I was saying I didn't get a chance, but I just thought the character, when they killed him off, like you said, you'd never see that coming in the main character stuff, and that was fantastic. But then the character they brought in was so similar. I was like, hang on a minute, is this his fucking brother? Like, where is this guy? Like, when you first see him turn up and that. So yeah, I think
it was a different version of him. You know,
yeah,
like,
so did I. I thought it was like
versions of everyone else, but
yeah, and he kind of battles similar as well. So it was a bit like,
it's like,
oh, hang on a minute, I've just built him up. He's now dead, and who the fuck
stepped in? Do you know, that's the only like real critique I can think of the game, because I do feel it's like I do end up liking Versailles quite a bit. When it first happened, I was like, who's this guy? Like, what? And he's just going to take all his weapons and all his gear fits. It's like, I don't know. It felt like a bit of a cop out. It's like, oh, he's going to replace his character with someone else. The character of Versailles grows on you a lot throughout the game. But yeah, I agree. At first, I was like, oh, so they're just going to replace him immediately with another guy who's exactly the same. But he's not quite.
It's a little bit jarring, yeah.
Yeah, it's a little bit. But that was the only point, really, story-wise, that I was like, oh, I don't know if I like that. But everything else. All right, we could stick on story for quite a long time. I'm thinking maybe we move on to some other stuff, maybe come back to discuss the endings. And I think about the different endings. Obviously, Blunders, you'll have to adjudicate that section if you not finished the game.
Yeah, no, I want to hear it.
Yeah, you want to hear the ending?
Yeah, I haven't got
that
so
far.
I'm quite interested to see how it finishes up. Let's
move on to some gameplay mechanic pieces then. So let's go background the other direction. So I'll start with you, Darkness Dreams. What's one of your sort of favorite mechanics in the game? What do you like about the actual gameplay?
I actually like the fact that it's simplistic enough you can pick it up quite quickly. Being a turn-based one, it was similar enough to some of the old Final Fantasy ones, but it had its own flavor, it had its own build, and you could make it as simple or as complicated as you wanted to. And obviously, the more complex you made it and you built up your stats and you added everything onto it, yeah, you could get some really powerful moves. But I didn't really concentrate on any of that. I just picked what I liked and stuck with it, and that worked for me. And I've only done the one playthrough, and I felt it made it challenging enough. You know, I'm not one for playing really, really hard games. I think the only hard game I've ever done recently, it was Armored Core, Fires of Rubicon, and that was quite a hard game for me and challenging. But this is one of the ones that's like, oh my God, no, I have to get past this. I've got to do it. I'm not giving up. And it just kept plugging and plugging. And I love the fact that every area you went to, by the time you got out the previous one, you're like, I'm confident now, I know do these, go into a new area, and suddenly you get ass whooped by a whole bunch of new enemies to the point I want to hide and sneak through, and you kind of can't. You've got to deal with them. I mean, you don't have to fight them all, but if you want to get all the loot and stuff like that, but it made it feel worthwhile, and that's something that I find is rare in games these days. There was none of the let's give you a dopamine hit here. No, you're going to work for that dopamine hit. You're going to get through it, and you're going to feel great afterwards. And I always did. I think it was is it the duelist or the sword one on the bridge?
I was going to mention him actually.
He was one of the best fights for me in the game. I haven't done any of the side characters, but he was epic. He was one of the first ones that properly challenged you to make sure your gear was right, you'd leveled right, you had some of the right pictos. And when I took me about 4 or 5 attempts to get past him. When I did, I was literally dancing around the room. My missus was going, "What the hell is wrong with you?" I was like, "You wouldn't understand. You're not a gamer." But I cannot believe I finally did it. But I think I think it's that. It was simple. You could understand it, but it was as complicated as you wanted to make it. You just had to make sure you had the right level of gear. You could go way beyond it, or you could have it here and still just about scrape past. I really enjoyed that by the skin of your teeth.
And Ollie, what about you then? What are some of your favorite mechanics?
For me, this was the closest experience to Final Fantasy 13 that I could have without replaying Final Fantasy 13 in terms of mechanics. I've spoken at length on various streams about how Final Fantasy 13 is one of my favorite battle systems because of the being able to switch your stats during the fight to find a build that works. And for me, being able to do that with your various characters, with the various weapons, the various pictos, to get a selection of battle mechanics that worked for you, but they might not work for another boss. So you're going to have to rethink it, maybe rework it a little bit. That aspect of it for me was just an instant hit. But it's not exactly Final Fantasy 13 because it does have its own mechanics in it. As you can see here, you can parry, you can block, you can interrupt sometimes, and it's that element of it was new and really challenging. To a point. I know we sort of talked a little bit about some of the story and stuff, and we're going to go into music later because the music is important in the game. But actually, there was a couple of fights where I had to turn the music off because the cues, if you want to do things like parry or block or do things at the right time, the audio cue from the boss is just as important as the physical cue, and that extra half a second, millisecond sometimes to just hear that noise and go, right, that's the attack that's coming. Now I know when to block and parry. That was invaluable. So sometimes I would have to, unfortunately, turn the music off so that I could really focus on the battle. And I'm going to let Blunners talk in a second as well, because otherwise I'm just going to wang on. But I felt much like Darkness has said. I felt like it was very fair. If you screwed up, it was because you screwed up. And for me, that's why I like games like Elden Ring, Demon's Souls, Dark Souls. They're hard, but normally you mess up because you messed up. You fell off the top of the roof. You didn't block at the right time. And that is exactly what this game was. It's not as hard as those games by any stretch, but it had a nice learning curve to it where it was a case of get good or you won't progress.
But it became fun, didn't it?
It never hindered you.
Yeah, that bit came fun learning it. Like I've played summer games where it was just frustrating because you actually didn't do anything wrong. But in this one, you're right. It's always when you did something wrong, but that became fun of learning how to do it. Yeah.
So for me, the gameplay just in terms of a battle mechanic, it's one of my favorite turn-based ones for sure.
Same, definitely. What about you then, Blunners? Have you got any favorite mechanics from the games that we haven't talked about already?
Well, not really. You've kind of all kind of covered how we thought about it. I did feel sometimes when you went out into like that open worldy kind of thing, I felt it kind of went a bit weird. I don't know whether it's more of an art style choice they went for, or it was a way that they were trying to condense the game in certain areas. Because you would get into like you would go into like a certain area, and it'd be brilliant. You'd be like you could really, and then when it went out into like that scale, where it kind of lost its like. I don't know. Well, I'd say it's sharpness, because obviously you've got to remember it's an indie game at the end of the day. It's not like a massive AAA developer, but I did like you guys have all said about the gameplay. I do feel like it teaches you to get good, and you learn you'll learn a boss, and you'll learn the way of like you either have to learn his move sets and learn what's coming, otherwise you ain't going to survive. And I think that was, once you nail it, you're like, I've got this guy on toast. I think there was one I went down like a blind alley kind of thing, like you do, and you find like one of them mime mimicky ones, and then like one of them was the fact that if you take a hit, he just starts to regenerate. He just gets basically a ton of health back. So it was a case of like having to go do like a near perfect run. Otherwise, he would just get all his health. But if he hits you in that, he just gets all his health back. So it was really, it took me, I think that one took me about half an hour just to beat that guy, because I was having to really nail down the fact that I worked out. I felt the way that they, like the mechanics of having to level up, get yourself, get your character stronger. Like it was a bit weird having to wait for like the end of like a day kind of cycle kind of thing to then go and find that weird creepy looking matey and get him to upgrade all your weapons and stuff. But yeah, like the mechanics of it, it would like slowly drip feed you, and then you didn't get like, you don't really get enough to be able to work out which way to go on your skill tree. So skill tree is one thing we haven't spoke about, because it's like the way that they set up each character is completely different. I was then trying to take the stance of, right, I get this character is going to be mainly electric based. This one's going to be mainly. You're then trying to be tactically of what your characters are to see what will then is more effective on each style of like boss you play. So yeah, they done a fantastic job. And like you said, I'm not as into turn based stuff like you guys are, but I still really enjoyed this, and I thought it was absolutely brilliant.
And I think with the where you do the pictos and set up the characters that come along, the thing that reminded me a lot of that was like building a magic deck. If you've ever played Magic the Gathering, there's like the game of Magic where you're actually fighting and using your decks, and then there's kind of like the meta game of Magic of building a deck. And I actually quite enjoy doing that. I think you've got like the mana curve. You go, right, if I put loads of really expensive cards, I'm not going to have enough Magic to afford to play them. So I'm going to have a mix of like cheap cards and expensive cards. And it's the same in this, in Expedition 33. If you had all your attacks for 9 AP, you'd be waiting to get enough AP to use them. So you have to have like a balance. I think when you then start getting the pictos, like, okay, start the battle with more AP. So you can start off with a big move, or, you get AP every turn, or AP when you burn, and then you start building up. Like there's all that synergy to be like, right, I'm going to now burn this character. The next character, when they hit a burned character, they mark them. And then the next character, if they hit a marked character, it causes double burn. And like, you can just start creating this ecosystem of damage. And it's really clever, because it kind of puts you in control of that, to just come up with these really fun little synergies between the moves and the pictos.
That's where my only critique of it comes from is a little bit, especially when it first came out. I think they've patched it a bit now. Is at first, when you're playing through it, all does become about one character, and no matter what you do, it is always that one character has the most powerful build, and that's Mael. She does become the linchpin of the whole team.
She is very good. There are some other characters you can get to some very, like Lune, you can actually make really powerful.
But from all the builds, when I was looking through it, and I was close to the end, when I completed, I had looked through, and everybody was just all about Mael. Then it changed a little bit to being all a bit about Verso, and it's because they kept flipping, they were patching and changing, but everybody's finding these builds, and it's a critique, but it's also a plus to the game. Is the fact of you can find builds for it, and that's the only time I started getting a little bit bored, was when it's like I'm just using the same moves over and over again, because they do work, especially towards end game. You are using the same things over and over again, but by then it doesn't really matter too much.
Yeah, I suppose the two things I was going to say before we sort of perhaps move on to another topic is the two things I think are really well designed. And one is, if you compare this to something, again, I'm going to go back to Final Fantasy VII, which is, you know, one of my favorite RPGs. The one thing I didn't like about 7 is that when you get near the later parts of the game, your damage is just doing full damage. So you might as well just hit. There's no point doing the special moves. You can just go, yeah, I'm just going to hit it rather than casting fire. And you're always like, before then, when you want to cast like spells, you're really like trying to reserve your magic. Whereas in this, I felt like you either buffed your standard attack, so doing normal hits like burned or healed or did something cool, or you had enough AP to constantly do moves. So you were always doing something. And then even in the attacks, get quick time events on top. Yeah. And then you've got like, the power. So you're always like engaged in it. And I think that works very well. The other thing I found is I think it works really well having 5 characters and you have your team of 3. And if your team of 3 gets bested, you're then down to 2 and you're not getting a third back. And you feel like you're on your last legs. And the amount of boss fights I did where I was down to my last 2, and also the healing items, you have a limited number and you refresh them. And like you run out of healing items. So I'm like, okay, I've got 1 character left. Everyone else is dead. I've got no healing items left. And then you do a move and you kill the boss on that last hit. It's like, if this fight carried on any longer, I would have died. Only just scraped by. But it's meticulously designed to make that happen.
It's almost
like, I think they've
their
done
own game
like,
and tweaked it to make it more enjoyable, isn't it? Which is like,
yeah. But I just thought that was so good. It's like that, and it's a turn-based game. There's like on the edge of your seat action. And it's like, how have they pulled that off? Because
I was just saying one more thing that Ollie mentioned is about. No, sorry, Blunder's mentioned when you first get onto the world map area. That actually felt very much like the first time you leave Midgard when you first ever played Final Fantasy VII, because it's kind of that world map where you can wander around and there's like bits you can't get past yet and stuff like that. And I actually just got a moment of nostalgia because I haven't seen that in a game for years. You know, I think it's like Final Fantasy 7, 8, and 9 were the last ones I ever really played where you'd have your areas, but then you would go out onto a world map and move around a bit. I was like, I miss this. You know, it's something I miss from those games. Where it's just
there's even like there's even like a few areas, and only a couple. But there's a few like still frame areas, where you go in and you can just like walk around a still frame scene. And I was like, it's just like, I thought that was really cool as well.
Yeah, that's what I mean. Everything seems to be very well thought out. Within it's like it's really difficult to find anything to critique other than, like I said, there's a few moments where I got a bit. I'm using the same moves, but by then the story is moving at such a pace, didn't really matter.
Right, any more on gameplay mechanics or design before we move on to?
I was just going to say, I loved the look of it though. It had the right level of atmosphere, the design of the characters, and every outfit they wore. Everywhere you went was something different to see. It never felt like the area was just the same as the last one. It was very different every single time you went somewhere. And that was brilliant. Genius.
Well, that segues nicely onto this art, sound, and atmosphere. So I'm going to go background the other way. So, Blunners, you have the floor first to talk a little bit about the art, the sound, and the atmosphere.
Yeah, so I'll start with the art style first. And the fact that you can't, when you really boil down that this isn't like a AAA game and it's just made by like some like French like devs kind of thing. They've done such a fantastic job. It just looks brilliant. It looks so good, and obviously it all works in tail with like the whole concept of the actual game of like the Paintress, the pictures, and it just looks like it looks. I think the art style of it is fantastic. I mean, they've done such a great job with that. The sound, there's a lot of like. Not my cup of tea, kind of like opera-y, singing loud, and that was a bit like, you know what I mean? It was a bit like saying, Ollie, I think when you really boil down to the gameplay mechanics, having that sound going on, which Tim did later tell us that it's in French and it's actually letting you know, and it's actually like telling people things that they shouldn't know. Wasn't it, Tim, you were saying about the sound?
Yeah, I heard that because I didn't know, because it's all in French and they're singing. And apparently there was one critique in France was like some of the lyrics of some of the songs that you hear on the world map talk about stuff that
Story,
hasn't happened
yeah.
yet. And it's like, oh, there's
Yeah.
spoilers in the gameplay music. I've destroyed my background while I was getting a beer.
I
so-
kind of figured. I just remember reading some of it, and I
There we
remember
go,
talking
that's
to you
better.
about it in work about the sound stuff. It's like, yeah, it's like everyone in France, it didn't do very well because it gave the game away at the very beginning and with all the songs and stuff.
Oops.
Whereas whereas we didn't have a clue. I was just like, what is this opera music? But it's probably there going, you're all going to die. That, do you know what I mean? We just didn't have a
Yeah,
clue,
pretty
like,
much.
Enough,
yeah, in the background going like. So yeah, and the way it sets the atmosphere up, the sound, the art style just sets the atmosphere. And as in like the setting, like we've all spoken about like the D-Day feel when you turn up and everyone's just getting wiped out, like they're on like you've just landed at the French Sea again. And all these bullets are just spraying everywhere and everyone's just getting wiped out. I was like, whoa, what the hell? But like you said, you feel stranded. You're then trying to rebuild your team around you. But yeah, I think it's so good. I just think the atmosphere, the sounds, and the art style is fantastic.
Mhm. Yeah, I would agree with all of that. I like the European sort of feel to it in terms of its look. It doesn't look Western. Well, it does look Western in the sense because Europe is part of the West, isn't it? But it doesn't look like America. It doesn't look like Neo Tokyo. It doesn't look like Night City or something like that. It actually does look like you're on the coast of Europe. It has a very French feel to the way it looks, which is, of course, by design. It's designed by a French studio, but actually, I think that makes it more interesting because it's not too familiar to a lot of people, and I think probably for people that live in France, it's probably quite a nice revelation to be walking around something that maybe does feel slightly familiar. So that, in terms of creating atmosphere, for me, just immediately makes it distinct from anything else that's floating around at the moment, or maybe for a little while. The sound and the art style for me kind of all go hand in hand. I did love the soundtrack. I did like the way some of that music would build, especially when you have your oh god, all the characters' names are escaping me. The main villain, when you're Renoir, when you have your first sort of proper fight with him after Gustav has passed, the music for that battle is something incredible. It swells and it follows the script after that iconic line, and then it's insane.
That line as well, though, I think that's one of my favorite lines in any game ever. And the thing they do as well, which is really clever, and I love this, is that the music starts before like the smash and the transition.
Yep.
So it's not like you get the battle start thing and then the battle opens up and then the music starts. Like, no, the music starts first and then it transitions in the battle. I was like, just that he drops that line and then it shows Renoir's face, the music starts, and then it's that goosebumps moment that was like absolutely brilliant.
And it is it's one of many moments where the look of the game and the music and the atmosphere is all kind of intertwined, really. You can't have one without the other. So yeah, for me, all three were just impressive from beginning to end.
Cool. So, Darkness Dreams, what are your thoughts on the
I could talk
art sound?
This is one of the bits I could talk forever on, because if you take the base gameplay, it was great. And then you add in the art, the sound, and the atmosphere, and it just pushes it beyond any expectation you can have for a game. I mean, for me, the art style was very classical French painter style, because I mean, it is a game about painting, so they've done homage to that. They've made deliberate decisions. Let's think about actually the beaches of Normandy are in France, so the whole thing of the beach scene being smashed together is probably a homage to D-Day, and it's just that but the way they do it, for me, it felt very almost what's his name, Lovecraftian in some respects. It had that dark element to it that they added in the sound where it actually goes up and down. And I was thinking about this as you guys were chatting. If you think about all the Europe aesthetics we see, it's like the last game I played was anyways set in Europe was Assassin's Creed. Is it Valhalla? Whichever one is the Viking one. It's in UK. I gotta be honest. It was, for me, it was awful. I didn't like it. The aesthetic and the feeling and the atmosphere of that game was nothing compared to this. And it's like somebody in the chat's pointing out, yeah, good point. Europe's always portrayed in medieval ages. This didn't feel like that.
No.
This felt something different. And it wasn't even if it's our world. It's a different version of France somewhere, and it just kept you going. And it's like, I want to see what's around the next corner. I want to feel it. And it's just that artwork pulling you in. And you go into some of the areas and it'd be dark. Like the undersea area was one of my favorite ones, where you're under the water. Feels like you're in and under the water. And you've got all the sea themed enemies and stuff. And you get through that and you've got all the shadows and the lighting coming through it. And you really felt like you were under the water and you were walking through it. It's like, this is amazing. It's like under the sea, you're walking along sort of thing. But then all of a sudden it's like all these little explosions of color somewhere. And, without looking into it, because for me playing through it, I got the clues that about the painting, because you look at the gesturals, they were just paintbrushes. When they die, it's because they've had their pigment washed out of them, and then they're going to come back because they're going to be used again. So they're all the paintbrushes. The comic element of it's onto like the world map, and all of a sudden it's just explosions of color again. It's just really bright, and the music uplifts, but it still feels like a dirge. It still feels like, although this is nice, bright, and sunny, this is awful. What you're going through is terrible, and it's like, no matter where you go in this area, you're not escaping your fate. And even then, what's the big, the guy who flies at the end? I can't remember his name now.
Escape.
Escape. Do you know what?
Oh,
he was
love
one of
Escape.
the best atmospheric characters, because he was just happy-go-lucky.
I cannot believe we're 48 minutes in. We've only just mentioned
only just
the best character in the game for me in many ways, because he's like c'est la vie. Such is life. He has that French attitude of, okay, things are going to be bad, but let's just carry on anyway. I don't care. I'm happy. I've got my friends. I've got my rocks. I've got this. I can do whatever. When he's like, whoopee, wee. When everyone else is like, fuck this shit. We're all going to die. If we don't get somewhere. And it's like that, to me, it was just that roller coaster of emotions with the roller coaster of the story. And it's perfectly timed. It hits at the right thing. It doesn't miss a beat. There's no real dips, because it just as you feel like there's a dip in it, that's caused by you, because you're not following on with the story. You're not moving on. You're just dithering around looking for stuff. And then all of a sudden you go back and whoop off. It just throws you back up in the air and you're like, oh shit, what have I done? It's like those moments. And especially when you get to one of the last fights with Renoir before you hit the Paintress, that one where Tim, where you're in the tunnel sort of thing before you go up the ramp to the Paintress, that fight, and when he's just suddenly like even more powerful again, is like, I barely beat you last time, how the hell? And it's just that atmosphere, it's just that oppressive Lovecraftian feel to the whole of it, and mixed in with all the French art styles and the Renaissance period. I just felt I can't put words to it. It just felt epic.
I really like with anything, really, any form of media, when the hero is kind of outgunned and just has to persevere and overcome something more powerful. And that's what it feels like in this game. It doesn't feel like you're like this really powerful, although you are very powerful. You don't just go around like, squashing stuff. It's you're the one getting squashed, and you have to like learn how to fight back.
But you're not really that powerful till right at the end.
No, not until near the end. You are kind of outgunned quite well, which I really liked. But yeah, some of those, like that fight with Renoir in particular, is like when that music is really, really good. I know, Blunders, you said you didn't like the operatic singing, but I thought that was great. And another character we haven't talked about that's got a great soundtrack is Monoko. When you first face Monoko, it's just like, we got some like jazz.
Yeah.
jazz going off now.
Yeah,
And like
right,
some of
what-
his dialogue as well. I think my favorite bit with Minoko, because obviously he's like, oh, I'm a brave and mighty warrior. I just like fighting. You then go to fight Golgra, and he's like, oh, please tell me I don't have to participate. And he just goes, please help me. And he's like, okay.
Yeah.
And he carries
Oddly,
on.
it kind of reminded me of like a little bit like watching an A-Team film, TV show. You know, he had the different characters. Is like you had the hard man, you had the comic element, you had the can't be asked person and stuff like that. And it just felt that there was that camaraderie that was there as well. To me, there's nothing really bad in that game at all that anybody should be able to complain about. It was just brilliantly done.
I will say one more thing about the atmosphere, and that is, and I didn't like this at first, and then I realized why they'd done it, and I actually really liked it. And that's there's no map, there's no mini map, there's no main map, and I was like, I keep getting lost.
Yes,
I wish I had a map. So, like, as a gamer, as a mechanic, it's like, I wish I had a map, and then I realized it's because they don't have a map, and they are lost. And actually, if you need to find your way around, just figure it out and you get used to it. And they do have some light cues. So if you follow like lights, that tends to mean you're on the main path. So if you see lights and there's another exit, go and explore down there, come back to the lights when you want to find your way out. And that was, but it doesn't tell you that. You just kind of have to figure that out for yourself. And I just thought that was actually set the atmosphere really well, because you couldn't go, it's okay, I'll just look at the map and figure out where I need to go. You can't. They haven't given you a map deliberately.
It's the first time I think I'm not where a game doesn't hold your hand and works properly.
Yeah. Okay. Right. Shall we talk a little bit about the endings? So, double back to story and world building. So we need to break it to Blunners.
Yeah, you need to break
know
it.
this. So Blunners. I don't know if you figured this bit out, but they're all actually inside a painting.
Yes,
so,
I knew that.
You can do that.
Kind of easy to tell. Yeah.
None of it's real. None of it's going. So the only people that are real is Mael is actually Alicia, who was the girl that looks just like her but with the burned face. So she's got that version of her. That family is a painted version of the family. They're in the portrait as well. So the real family is outside the painting. And if they stay in the painting too long, they start to crumble. That's why the paintress and the cartographer are all like crumbling and stuff, because they've been in there so long. So you defeat the paintress, hoping you're going to liberate the people of Lumiere. You come out, and it turns out that the paintress was not causing the gommage. She was trying to hold it back. She was trying to prevent the gommage. And then once you defeat her, everyone gets gommaged, and you're like, oh shit, like everyone's gone then. That's it. But at that point, Mael gets her memories back, finds out that she is actually Alicia, and it is the Verso's painting. So the Verso is a painted version, and because the real Verso had died in a fire that I think Alicia blames herself for, she's gone into the painting because they want to keep part of him alive, because the real Verso painted that world. So all of it is that family's trauma, and it's their grief. It's them sort of not moving on past the grief. So when Renoir is trying to say no, like destroy this painting and leave, it's because he's like, you need to get out of this fantasy and go into the real world and accept the fact that our son's died. This isn't actually real. And that is when, by the end of the game, you are met with a decision to either stay in the painting or to leave it. And Verso, who, if they close the painting, he will actually die, but he's been in there for
part of his soul.
The part of his soul that was actually real will die, and he won't exist anymore. But he does actually say, stop painting me. It's like, I don't want to do this anymore. I just want it to be over. And Mael, who's now learned the truth, wants to have a life with her brother and says no. Like, that's what you've been fighting for the whole game, right? You've been fighting to stop the paintress and stop Renoir and save the people of Lumiere, who, although they're not real, are complex enough that they feel real, and she wants to stay with them. And you get to choose who wins at the end. Does Mael get her way and they stay, or does Verso get his way and he wins? So, Ollie, I'm going to get you first, and then Blunners can tell us what he thinks perhaps at the end. So what ending did you go for, and what do you think is the better Not necessarily a good or bad ending, but what do you think is the best cinematic ending to that?
Yeah, there is no good or bad ending because each one is bad, really, in my opinion. You either lose your brother or you stay in a fantasy world and don't accept what's happened. So either one is quite a dark ending. And I am an absolute sucker for a dark ending. Much to Darkness's dismay, all of
I'm
my
gonna
movies
get,
on
I'm
this
gonna
side,
get voted on this. Yeah.
they're all horror movies.
Yeah.
Some of my favorite horror, and even some of my favorite drama or anything like that, will end with an unhappy ending. I am drawn to those types of endings. So for me, I'd really invested in Mael. I really, thought of her as like you should in the game, like she was my younger sister, and reminded me of my daughter a little bit, and I just thought if that was me, I would stick in the painting. I wouldn't accept it because that's not what this character is about. This character is about retaining and keeping that memory alive at all costs, even at the expense of your own, I guess, sort of sanity and reality. So I stayed in the painting, and I think the end sequence of that, especially when you see Verso, is everything. Is absolutely everything. His dismay, and I might have to refresh my memory, but I'm 99% certain that when you see him in the end, everybody else is quite happy, and he's sort of trying to be happy, and there's just this
He's in torture. Yeah,
his eyes are glassed. There's tears in his eyes, knowing that this is not what he wants. And for me, that just absolutely nailed the game for me.
Okay, so Darkness Dreams. What are your thoughts?
I'm
on
a complete polar
ending?
opposite. See, now I'll give you a bit of background. Is like because I've obviously have not really talked to any of you before, other than Tim. I'm an avid gamer. I play lots of different games. Not much of a retro gamer, but I've been playing games since like I used to have an old Acorn Electron. It was probably my first time gaming. Still got it somewhere. And then Mega Drive, Game Boy, and then up to PS1, and now I'm more of a PC gamer or Steam Deck. And when I play games that give you the choices of where you can be really evil or really bad, I always play the good guy because I cannot be mean to them. I cannot be mean to NPCs, right? I really can't. I struggle to do it. I'm one of those. All right? So that gives you an idea of my moral compass in that sense, right? And there's nothing against anybody picking the endings because all the endings are valid. It's not real. It is a fantasy, and it's like wherever you enjoy. But for me, when I got to that ending, the choices, I had to think of it in a logical sense. Is I don't want those characters to keep hurting. And in that moment, Mael is being selfish, and she knows it. She knows she's making this up because that version of her brother isn't real. He is not real. He is a fantasy. And if you look at most of the shows that we watch like that, it's always a fact of you have to get rid of the trauma. You cannot keep living in your fantasy world. You need to step up, face reality, and then you can move on. Then you can get on with your life. So I had to choose what I consider to be the good ending, which is as hard as it is, as much pain as it is, the only logical choice to move on with your family is to destroy the painting and move on, because otherwise you're just stuck there. All the people around you, how do you know they're happy? Because they're not real. They're just paintings. They're marks on canvas. They don't exist, but because you're so wrapped up in the trauma and blame of something that happened, it wasn't even your fault. Because to give a bit more context, there was something to do with the writers, isn't it, Tim? That they were the ones that attacked them in the real world.
I want to know more about that as well. I hope you get
me
more.
too. And they are the ones who caused the fire, killed Verso, and scarred Alicia. So to me, it's and I love the ending. Is like, to me, oddly, it felt very my dad hadn't long passed away at the time as well. He'd been gone about a year or so, so still quite raw. So the whole thing of having to let somebody go was very poignant for me as well at that time. And I was like, do you know what? I have got to, because you've got to heal. And to me, that's the only ending as well, logically, that I could see them doing a sequel from.
Yeah, actually, I would give you that. I think if it carries on, because carry on from that.
Otherwise, she's stuck in the painting.
Yeah. So
anyway,
I kind of agree with both of you. So when I first went to go do it, the reason I chose to stay in the painting, because that's the choice I originally made. Obviously, I did both eventually. But the reason I chose to stay in the painting was not for Maëlle and not for Verso, but for everybody else, like Lune and Cecile and Monoko, because like they don't know that they're not real. Like they are so complex and so detailed that they are real in a sense, or they felt just as real as the other characters. And like, well, why don't they get to enjoy that happy ending that you've been fighting for? You've been fighting all this time to stop the Paintress, stop the counter, save the people of Lumiere. And I just felt like all that journey was for nothing if I just let them all die. So I was like, no, I'm going to save the people of Lumiere, was who I really cared about. And then the ending started, and I was like, this doesn't feel right. And I've made a terrible mistake.
You never said that at the time. You argued with me for days how that was the better ending.
But this is the thing: is I do think that is the better ending cinematically.
Yes,
because of that. I still think that is now. I think that is the better ending. I don't think that's evil. I don't think that's the good ending. But I prefer that ending still. Is what I meant, because that bit, obviously the bit that Ollie's already talked about, where Verso's looks like he really doesn't want to be there. Everyone else is smiling and happy, like everything's fine. And again, with that makes them then feel fake. Like I'm just being like, oh, I want to save them because they feel real, and then they're there going, oh yeah, tra-la-la, we're going to a concert, everything's okay. It's like
they have no memories of everything else.
This feels fake now. So actually, I made the wrong choice on that. And then you see that Verso doesn't want to be there. It's that final frame that made the ending for me, was you just see Maëlle's face and she's starting to form the cracks that the paintress and the cartographer had, and then the music just goes dung,
David's
and
got
goes to black.
It is very much like Christmas special and ketamine. Yeah, that you kind of
yes. That final frame and that fade, that sudden, not fade to black, sorry, that sudden boom music, and I was like, that for me was the best ending.
Do you know what? Yeah. For me, if you're thinking about listening to you talk, it's almost very reminiscent, if you think about it, of the story of Blade Runner.
Yeah,
because they're not real, but they seem to be so real, and they seem to be becoming alive and everything like that. And it just has that taste of like the Blade Runner type series.
But this is something that could be explored again in a sequel, much like I think with Blade Runner. I adore Blade Runner 2049. I think it did something exceptional and impossible, and it still managed to retain enough of the secret that still hasn't actually been formally talked about, but it managed to unpack it and still keep it completely ambiguous without actually destroying the original film. And I could see something similar if they were to do another expedition game.
So
there's a little part of me that kind of hopes that they just won't, because
something set in that universe is what they've said. So
I could happily have something in that, but I think to continue the story would almost ruin what they've created, because with either ending, it's complete, in my opinion. It's, yes, they could go into another painting, yes, they could explore something else, but then it's like, but why would you want to? And I think that both endings I think are very definitive. So to go back and do another expedition, that would be the easiest option. But I think to expand that story further in terms of moving forward and future sequels and this kind of thing, unless they can do a Blade Runner, I wouldn't see the point.
the idea is it's nothing to do with what we've seen before, other than the fact of it's potentially some sort of war or something going on between the painters and the writers. You know, because if that's why I say what I class as the good ending. That whole story of that painting is now done. Right, you can't go back to it. It's burnt, destroyed.
Yeah, it's gone.
But the family's still there. They've just lost a son. They're now moving on. They know somebody killed their son. What are they going to do next? And that's the only thing I think they could do to move it forward, because then it becomes a whole new story arc. We got worlds within worlds within worlds. Then it's like, what could we do? Well, it's like, could we be going into books? Because the premise is if these writers got similar powers and they write stories, does that mean you go into the books? I mean, we've seen stuff like that in the cinema before now, where like books come alive and never-ending story and stuff like that. So to me, I really kind of hope if they do, it moves away, it moves on. It doesn't stick with that. It moves on. We know what's going on now, but we've got more to explore.
Yeah, I think I'd like to see more of that. I mean, I think it'd be a nice twist if it turns out like the painters are actually the villains of the story and the writers are the good guys. And we see everything from the writer's point of view. Something like that might be interesting, but we shall see. So, Blunners, final thoughts on the endings and stuff that we've talked about. Obviously, you've just heard us talk about it rather than experience it yourself. But what are your final thoughts on the game?
Yeah, it's kind of how I thought. I thought like I said, I knew you were all in a painting just from what you see, and I kind of assumed that the Paintress isn't going to be the main bad guy, just from playing games like this before. But I wouldn't have seen the whole ending. And personally, what I would have picked, I think I might have gone with Darkness Dreams and actually just let them all, like you said, let them go.
Let them go.
Yeah, I think that's how I might have
50-50 split. There we go.
Yeah.
Good 50-50 split. Yeah,
definitely.
One thing I do want to touch on before we move on is obviously this won tons of awards. I will just read them out from the Game Awards. It won the best independent game. It won the best VA voice acting from Jennifer English, best art direction, best debut indie, best music, best RPG, best narrative, best game direction, and it got Game of the Year. But there was a little asterisk on there because it was stripped of a Game of the Year award because of use of AI.
It wasn't in the Game of the Year. The Game of the
wasn't
Year
in the Game of the Year.
There was another. It did get another award for a
from someone else. Yeah.
But it still has got that word in there, AI, and I wanted to know what everyone's thought of a game using AI in it. So, like the fact, how do you feel?
I think we sort of mentioned it in a past stream. I don't think there's any AI in the final game.
No,
it's all to do with they used AI as like a placeholder while they were effectively sorting out the rest of the game. And I don't see how that's a bad thing.
Well,
from the article I've got in front of me, some AI, but not much. The game reportedly launched with AI generated textures before they were later replaced at a later date without any clarification from the developer. So it was actually removed in an update.
Right. So what I heard was that they used an AI placeholder. I think it's for like some textures of like some newspapers and Lumiere in the town at the beginning.
Yeah, got it here. I'll show
some things on there, and that was it. So I don't feel like that's a big thing, but I think what the issue was, because it was still in there at launch, I think they neglected to replace it. They did go back and change it, but because it was there at launch, when they got the nomination for one of these other awards, not the primary ones, but some of these other ones, they were asked to declare if there was any AI. And they didn't declare any AI, and they said, no, there's no AI in the final launch. And technically there was because of those placeholders, which was an oversight. So it wasn't that was, I think, just a mistake. They didn't say, look, it's on there, but they've since removed it. The game that then won in its stead used AI, but it used it and declared it. So it was kind of like a bit of a weird technicality thing where
that's because you lied to us.
Because you didn't declare it and it technically was in there, you've actually breached those terms. So therefore we're stripping the award. but didn't it make a lovely clickbait article for everyone to jump
Yeah,
on board?
it did.
And
I
I think it was like, I think actually the real story of what happened is not that interesting,
No.
and I don't think it's that big a deal. But everyone jumped on it because people like to jump on stuff when it's popular, and everyone was raving about this game, and it swept the Game Awards. So if you were not a fan of turn-based RPGs and you didn't like this game, which some people might, you might not like this game, it might not be for everyone. I absolutely loved it, but if someone thinks it's garbage, it's garbage. It's up to you. Go play FIFA, but you know, or play Call of Duty again and leave us alone to play our French RPGs. But I think because of that, it just blew up as a story, and it was like, oh, they used AI. It's like, have you read?
No, I like that when David said in their defense is AI in Clair, so you know.
Oh, yeah, well, yes,
yes, technically correct.
But I do think, you know, you touched on the fact that this is a small studio. I think all the stuff I hear about the game when I started playing it, I didn't know all this stuff, and then obviously because I was playing the game and talking about it a lot, I started getting loads of information about the studio in my feed. And it's a really small studio. They've only got this many people, and they found the musician on like Reddit or something, and then it's like, oh, do you want to do all the music for the game? Okay, so they got like an independent music person, and the music's phenomenal, and they just brought someone in to do it. They had people involved in like the script and the voice acting that were like on staff. They're like, hey, do you want to like do this for the game? And it just feels so wholesome that this game was made. And again, they weren't like, when you say indie studio, I think a lot of people feel like it's a group of people trying to make a game for the first time. So no, a lot of them are industry experts. They came from big studios and started making this game. And I think the fact that, you know, it's been made by gamers that like and have a passion for games, and there's a lot of like love and passion that's gone into it. It's not a game that's been driven to completion by, you know, someone that wears a suit that hasn't picked up a controller for like 20 years.
Get it out earning the buck.
Yeah. Let's put some microtransactions in this bad boy. Like, they just made a game, and I saw a thing actually. I can't remember who posted it.
It wasn't a No Man's Sky.
If there is a game and the opening menu screen says new game, continue, options, and that's it, it's going to be a much better experience than if you have, you know, lobby, shop, DLC, expansions, you know, all these different things, like a hectic menu of like, oh, buy more coins, get more eggs, everything on there. No, it's just new game, continue game, or options to maybe adjust the sound, and that's it. That's your game. So yeah.
But also, Sandfall, the studio that have done it, actually got praised by the French president as well. So it was very good that the fact that their actual country stepped up and actually spoke quite about it, because you wouldn't get that with the British guys, would you? You wouldn't get our guys praising like, you know what I mean, turn 10 for creating such a great racing game.
Go back to with your question saying what do we think of AI, is the simple fact of it depends on how much they use and the effort they put in. If you think about Clair Obscur, they used it for some tiny amount of placeholders but created the entire rest of the game. And it's the simple fact they lost an award because they forgot to declare that, because somebody's probably made a mistake somewhere. So fucking what? Why does that matter? And yet you go out there and you see so many other games that are released on Steam or, you know, come up free or play, and they're just full of nothing but AI churned out graphics with minimal effort, and yet they can win the award because they don't they class it still a game. You know, it's bonkers. It's just a very silly, as Tim put it. It was a clickbaity story. On a technicality, they got stripped of the title because they didn't declare something because like I said, somebody made a mistake. It's pointless. AI in games is okay depending on how you use it. I wouldn't play a game that's fully generated by AI. Sod that, you know. But this game is like, it made no difference to me. The game was amazing.
Yeah, I just had to mute Tim because I think he's had a few too many.
He hasn't he?
Oh, yeah, right, Tim. You're back in the room.
He can't even get his mic on now.
Oh, hang on.
I'm here.
There you go.
I'm just grabbing another beer.
I think.
Sorry.
First rule of Game Club is you drink through Game Club.
Yeah.
No, I was just going to say, I think with AI stuff, I just think it's about declaring it, isn't it? That's the problem. And I think there should be some laws. I think, like if you're watching a TV show and there's product placement, you get like the big P in the corner. It says this program contains product placement. Just have that. This program contains AI. This game contains AI. Let people know. And if someone wants to go, oh no, I don't want to consume that content because it's got AI. Fine, don't watch it, don't play it. But if you're like, oh, it's got AI in it, don't really care, going to play it anyway. Fine. But it's like, don't present something as original content that is actually AI. Like, as long as you're upfront about it, I think that's fine. But I think it's happening whether we like it or not. It's going to be coming everywhere. So, yes. Right.
All right.
The final showdown of Game Club is this game an avoid, a play, or a must play? So I'm going to go back the other way around again. I think I went that way last time. It's that way this time. And I'm mirrored, so it's that way. So Darkness Dreams. Is this game a play, a must play?
Precious, it must be played. It's I want to add a fourth in. If you don't play this, then there's something wrong with you. It's a must play. I think it's such an influential game that we haven't had hang on, let me get my teeth back in. We haven't had a game that as influential as this since probably the 90s, into the early 2000s. We go back to you'd say the golden era of all those games when it's first coming out. You've seen all the AAA titles when they actually meant something and they felt something. They made you play something. Final Fantasy VII and all those other games that were around. It's on a par with that. It is. You've already seen the copies coming out. You've only got to go on Steam, for example, and you'll see other copies. Oh, this is the new Clair Obscur. There's loads of other things coming out. I think purely for that, it's something that if you class yourself as a gamer, even if you don't like turn-based or stuff like that, you should give it a go. Just to have a feel of it, because it is a game of a generation, of a lifetime. It is, to me, it's that important. It gives you something you will not really find from any other game. That's it from me.
Ollie.
It is a must play. I think there are games which do transcend their genre in terms of like turn-based stuff. Everybody immediately thinks of Final Fantasy. They think of Dragon Quest. And if you're not into that sort of fantasy element, then you're immediately going to be put off. But there are games that I think that transcend that. The first one to do that for a while was South Park Stick of Truth. That is effectively a turn-based RPG. And loads of my friends who hate RPGs played Stick of Truth, who were like, this is brilliant. It's like, well, you're going to enjoy turn-based RPGs then. You just need to find one that you kind of click with, because South Park did a really great job of making a very simple one, but it worked for that gameplay. And then Expedition 33's come along and done a very similar thing. It's got this incredible story with incredible characters. And I think if you're into that, then the battle mechanic you'll just get used to. It's just a different way of fighting. So yeah, for me, it is a must play. I think, I'm just sort of thinking of other games that they're not like it, but certainly Silent Hill is taking a leaf into this kind of direction where they're going to different studios now to come up with their own take on Silent Hill. And when you play something like Silent Hill F, you realize that actually it's set in Japan. It feels different. It feels like a Japanese game. The new Silent Hill Townfall is going to feel very Scottish. The town that you're in is based on a town in Scotland, and it looks British. It looks Scottish. And I think that is going to add to it. And I think Expedition 33 was one of the first games, certainly for a little while, which has gone, well, we're a French developer and we're going to make the game feel European. And it benefited from that. So
the authenticity.
There's so many reasons to at least try the game. So yes, a must play.
Okay. Blanes, what are your thoughts?
Yeah, I agree with both the guys there as well. I think it's definitely a must play. The awards speak for itself. that was one of the reasons I was like, you know what, I need to go back and play this, because when it first, like I said, when it first came out, and then something new and shiny came along, so I didn't really get stuck into it like I should have. And then, yeah, like you said, saw all them awards, thought, right, I've got to try this out, and yeah, it's definitely a must play. Just all I will say is just take your time, don't be in a rush when you're playing it, and just try and soak up as much as you can. Like, just really try and take like how it's trying to build the story and the characters, and really understand what you are about to play, and make sure you've got the time to give it the time it deserves. Like, that's the thing. I didn't have the time to give it what it deserved when I first played it, and I obviously regretted that, and that's why I went back and restarted the whole thing again. And yeah, you get sucked into how it plays, and you get everything about it. So yeah, definitely a must play for me.
Okay, and I suppose my final thoughts on it are, it's definitely a must play, but I think for me it's possibly one of my favorite games of all time.
Oh wow!
I think for a while I've struggled with this transition, because I was like, Final Fantasy VII. Whenever anyone said, "What's your favorite game?" I was like, "Oh, Final Fantasy VII," and I think to myself, is this game actually better than Final Fantasy VII? And I think the things that really hit hard on both of them are music, the story, the characters, and the mechanics of the turn-based and the gameplay. And they are, I think, at least on par. So I think, obviously, I've got nostalgia for Final Fantasy VII, and I played that, and I always love it for how I felt playing it when I first picked it up as a teenager. And I think now I'm just so refreshed to see a game that's that good and doing the right things. And it's weird because it's influenced so much by those older games. And it's got so many elements you've seen, but I've not played a game like this that's hit like this since like Final Fantasy X, and that was on the PS2. I'm not as big a fan of the modern Final Fantasy. I don't hate it, like I enjoy it, but this hits differently. And I hope that this creates more turn-based RPGs that have got these modern day sort of the best of the old mixed with modern day quality of life. I'd love to see more of that.
I mean, if you want to compare it to the newer Final Fantasy VII remakes out there as well, I mean, they just knocking them out of the water. There's no comparison. They are inferior to Expedition 33.
Well, I would agree with you on that, but we might upset Ollie because Ollie is a big fan.
Let's not go down that.
Let's not go down. Again, I do like them, but I don't feel like they hit. Like, if I went back and replayed Final Fantasy X, which I think is the most recent, like, really good one. Like, I like 13. 13 was all right. It was good. It was fun. But I wouldn't go back and play it again. I'm like, oh, it was all right. But I could go back and happily start playing 10 again when we go offline. Or start playing Final Fantasy X right now. You know, so that run of like 7, 8, 9, 10 was peak Final Fantasy for me. And I just hope that now we've had this, oh, look, you can make a modern game now with these sorts of mechanics. I hope other people go, wow, that did really well. Let's do something like that. Because I'm not against that. People say, oh, you know, there's going to be a lot of clones. Okay. We like saying Souls-like now. Oh, it's a Souls-like game. Cool. Can we get some Clair Obscur-like games now, please?
I really wish.
Sign me up for that. I
really wish the remakes had come out after Clair Obscur, because I think they would have been much better games. And I'm playing them. I'm stuck on the second one. Because I'm just not enjoying it and finding it too samey as you're going through the actual world of parts. Don't get the story and everything's great. It's still brilliant. The sequences and this, you know, and all the boss fights and stuff like that are epic. But it's just the bits in between I'm finding really samey, really boring. But whereas Clair Obscur did none of that. I didn't find any of it boring at all.
I've gone back and did New Game Plus. If you've not played it through a second time, I actually really recommend going back and playing it again, because it hits different. You get all the characters from the start, and also they introduce the what's the gradient attacks. They introduced the gradient attacks quite late in the game.
Yes, yeah.
Going back and playing it again, you have all your gradient attacks. So there's some fights which, like, you can only really beat by getting the Gamage with Mael to just like wipe out the board. So you just have to like survive long enough to that to be an option. And you get like finishing off getting all of Monoko's feet and all that sort of stuff as well. But it plays a little bit differently, not massively, but it does play a little bit differently because of those things earlier on in the game. And it does upscale the battles, but you just get all the moves right from the start, and it's really fun. And then the DLC was really good too. I think the DLC was a lot of fun. I did manage to beat the weird inverted SKA character that is a crazy boss fight. That was hard as balls, but I managed to beat it. And yeah,
you were chuffed when you did that.
I was really chuffed.
Yeah.
I was like, wow, I actually beat this guy.
I literally come into the morning. We have a morning call every morning because me and Tim work together. And he comes in, the first thing is, right, morning call. You never guess what I did last night.
You know what? My daughter came downstairs and it's past her bedtime. She should have been in bed. And she was there. I was like, I was finishing off this boss fight. And she'd come downstairs and I was like, I can't be disturbed right now. And I beat it. And I just picked up, I was like, yes! And she's like, and she just started celebrating with me. I was like, I did. I don't think she had any idea what was going on. It's like,
I just woke up.
It's like, why are you out of bed? Go back to bed. But, I just did it. Hooray. Yeah. Anyway, right. So, Blunners, do you have the next Game Club game? What are we playing next?
So yeah, the next one is going to be an absolute beast of a game, and I know Dave Newlander's got it, and it is Resident Evil. So that is our next game for Game Club. I will be getting this at the end of the month for my birthday, so I cannot wait. Tim, you're currently playing this.
I am currently playing this, and I have to say it is amazing so far. Really, really like it. It's got a good they've mixed up the gameplay. You've got some action sequences as Leon, and you've got some really good horror bits as Grace. But they're both fun for different reasons. So it's really enjoyable to play as Leon, and it's really enjoyable to play as Grace. I just think sometimes when the games do that, you get this segment and you're like, oh, can this just be over with now? I want to go back to the other character. I don't like, no, I'm happy with either. Just keep it coming. It's really fun so far, and it is very atmospheric and legit scary. I think horror games have got so good. Like I grew up playing like Silent Hill and Resident Evil 1, like the original ones, and they're fine, but they're not actually scary because it's all like polygons and
they were at the time.
At the time, it's like, but still, it's like, oh, a cat jumped out and there's some glass on the floor. Yeah. Whereas now it's like, oh, there's some sort of thing which has been designed by a psych major who knows everyone has a deep, unaddressed fear of this thing, and we're going to shove it in your face. And you're like, oh, that's horrific. And for some reason, I want to keep playing
because horror is God.
They still can't beat that first one when you go through that gap, and you hear that the crow, and then that and it smashes through the window. Yeah, do you know what I mean? You can't beat that. So I remember like, shit, I can't shoot the bloody thing. And you're like, the tank controls aren't like there, and you're shooting in the air, and you're nothing there, and he's chasing you. But yeah,
trying to convince me, but I just cannot do horror stuff.
The green blood,
man. Real life stuff I come across, it just doesn't.
Only downside for me is you can't play it in VR yet. And I say because I hope we do get it in VR, because I held fire on 8 and I didn't play 8 until VR was an option. And then because I wanted my first experience in that game to be VR. I'm glad that I waited. But this time around, I was like, no, do you know what? I'm not going to wait. I'm going to get it early. And
day one.
Going to get there. I wasn't quite day one, but in all fairness, if I'd got it day one, it would have sat on my PlayStation for a bit before I actually got a chance to play it. But okay. Right. We have overrun quite a bit, but it has been a fun show, and it's been great talking about Expedition 33. So thanks to all the panel members for joining us. And we have got Darkness Dreams. Do you have anything you want to plug? Where can people follow you? Is there anything where you post?
I don't really do much. I do have a Twitch channel under the same name. I really stream, although I'm thinking about picking it up again to do some Warhammer mini painting, possibly in from my van. I might be doing. Here's a possibility. So other than that, we'll see.
Excellent stuff. And we are back on Monday with the Total Advocate podcast. And we are back on Wednesday with an evening with, aren't we? So we've got a guest on Wednesday.
Glassfrog Games. Yeah, Glassfrog Games. And I've made a video of their current game, which is going to be a NES. So we could actually play it on NES cart when we were in Bristol. 8-Bit Space 2, which fantastic, plays really well. The music on it is fantastic, and really good little indie game. So it'd be really interesting to see all things there. And we will be joined by Alex as well, who'll be joining us for it.
Excellent. Cool. And just a reminder, all of our streams now start at 9. So we are starting at 9, going live. And then if you are a member, you can get some members content. So Ollie, any final words from you before we sign off?
No, unless no, I think you're in the hot seat, Tim. So
okay, I will do a usual of please give us a like, because that pushes up the algorithm. And if you subscribe, that helps us out a ton. So thanks everyone for watching. For those who come after, we'll see you next time.
Say goodbye, Mr. Fish.